There comes a point in time when they're going to have to get into the big replacement programs. Aside from their water supply issues, they're going to have to get into the big time replacement and maintenance programs like we are, and it's going to be unbelievably expensive. And so I think that that is going to certainly be a draw for our region. And I think all the more reason why this region has to not just deal with its gray infrastructure, but we have to deal with the green as well, because we are in competition here with Milwaukee and Chicago and all these other Great Lakes cities who are turning themselves green for the sake of attracting the progressive young professionals that want that type of environment. So I think we have some real great opportunities in this region to draw people back.
Which is exactly the type of image that we would like to portray in Cleveland as well, I believe.
That's correct.
You used the phrase catastrophist earlier, which I thought was a good phrase. A number of catastrophists have written about, in the age of terrorism, the water supply being at issue and a potential source of vulnerability sooner or later across the country. Have we given thought to terrorism as it relates to your domains, or is it a matter of kind of waiting to see what develops?
Yeah, let me say this. Cleveland Water has spent upwards of $30 million on security within the water system, hardening all the facilities, fences, electronic monitoring. This all came from a vulnerability assessment that they were required to do by the EPA. And so we all had to go through extensive vulnerability assessments and on the drinking water side, and really pin down what our vulnerabilities were, and then design systems to the risks that we were willing to take on. And so Cleveland Water has done $30 million worth of improvements to their system. Likewise, at the sewer district, we've spent large amounts of money too. We kind of take it for granted. Well, it's not as maybe sexy to a terrorist to hit a wastewater plant as a drinking water plant, because there's a lot more scare factor in drinking water than there is on wastewater. But we have taken the initiative to harden up our facilities as well.
All of which derived from 9/11. I mean, the Homeland Security Department afterwards, everyone. Environmental programs that I never would have thought would have had security aspects to them were created. And US EPA was obviously the lead, but the vulnerability assessments on drinking water sources was a big part of that, which we've been involved in. Now, is it perfect? Probably not. But was there a lot of work done and a lot of money spent to try to button up security? Yes. I can tell you, probably about a year and a half ago, I got a call that in a county in Ohio, a citizen observed a person around a city's well field, and they didn't know what they were doing there. It seemed odd that this person was out there at night doing something in the property. They'd crossed over into the city property, and they were doing something with the pipes. And of course, we found out, we alerted everybody, the security, police, everybody went out there. We had an intoxicated person who didn't really know what they were doing, just sort of wandering around this facility. It's, thank God, is what we ended up with. But it is something that we do take very seriously.
Yeah, one more thing I would say on that. We all belong to ourselves at the sewer district and Cleveland Water. We all belong to an organization called the Water ISAC. It's an information sharing group. It's based in Washington, D.C. It's a web-based group that basically we share information on. And that's on a constant basis. We have our security cards that we have to code in on. And so we're all the water systems and wastewater agencies are sharing information on a daily basis as to security threats.
Julius, you had mentioned earlier that water is charged for on a usage basis. Mm-hmm. I assume that means if someone were to use twice as much water, they would pay twice as much. Or my thought is, has anyone investigated the possibility of charging premiums beyond a set allocation for water usage, so that maybe so many gallons would be allowed per household, and if you used more than that, you were going to pay a lot more than per gallon than you would have paid up to your allocation?
Cleveland Water charges on a two-tiered system where the first unit of water, MCF of water, which is about 7,500 gallons of water, is at a lower rate, and then subsequent ones are higher. They have not, we have not entertained going to any additional steps at this point in time. I know they got a rate study that's going on right now, so I don't know what their plans are in that regard.
In talking about storm sewer and dealing with that, it seems as though in the last 10 years there have been more than 1 or 2 occasions of 100 and 200-year storm events or water events, and those seem to be increasing. And is this part of a cycle, or are we noticing this as part of the global warming? And are we any plans to engineer to accommodate those type of storm water events?
Well, I mean, I think that yes, we are engineering. That's part of what our stormwater management program is about, is trying to address some of those very issues that aren't getting addressed by the local communities, or at least a lot of the local communities. So certainly that's one area that why we want to step in it. This whole notion, though, of 100-year, 200-year storms is kind of a moving target kind of thing. It might have been, that storm may not happen in your neighborhood for 100 years, okay? But it's widely put on the TV, and every neighborhood that has their 100-year storm, well, it looks like we're having a 100-year storm every year. So it's kind of a moving target as measuring what is a 100-year storm and what's a 200-year storm and what's a 5-year storm. But yeah, there's a lot of things that we need to do, and the CSO is another big part of that, making sure that there's sufficient capacity in the pipes to collect the water so that it doesn't overflow into the environment or into people's basements.
So in your plan, there's these big subway-sized tunnels, 25-foot in diameter tunnels, that they would actually manage that. Like in a case where you had a lot of storm water at any one given time, it'd be able to fill those tunnels and hold it, as you said, until it was able to be discharged later after the storm had completed. Yeah,
that's the intent of what they're meant to do. Now, will we be able to deal with every single storm? Probably not, and that's why we're saying that we went from 10 billion gallons of overflow. We're now around 5 billion gallons overflow. We'll be under 1 million by the time we complete this program. So we will sufficiently deal with that. That outlet you see at Edgewater Beach now rarely ever opens up anymore.
I have never seen it open up. But.
Okay.
If I can, I know we're out of time, but I just want to just go back to another kernel of this gentleman's question.
Sure.
And you've raised the $64,000 question, and I think no one truly knows the answer, in my judgment, and is that what impact is climate change having on local weather patterns? Are we seeing, was Katrina caused by global warming, is sort of the poster child question for this issue. And as of a couple of years ago, and I think even today, the general consensus is no one's really sure. I will just tell you as a personal observation, what I have noticed in my lifetime, which is by no means a measure of the extent to which global warming is or is not occurring, is that storms now seem to happen. The intensity of the storm is much higher. We get more rain in a shorter period of time. The gentle falling rains of my youth seem to have been replaced by these monsoon-like downpours that we get. Now, is that climate change? I know there are some people who say so. There are others who say it is not. I don't know the answer, but I think, like so many other issues having to do with global warming, we will just have to keep looking at the data and the data and the data. 10, 15 years from now, maybe even sooner, there may be a much clearer answer to that question.
Well, thank you.
Did you want to say something?
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you to both our speakers for being here.
Today at the City Club, we've been listening to a special program featuring Julius Ciaccia, Executive Director of the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, and Chris Korleski, Director of the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, and moderated by Gretchen Cuda of WCPN ideastream. Thank you, Mr. Ciaccia, thank you, Mr. Korleski, and Ms. Cuda, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This program is now adjourned.